you need an address. The UN and their NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, can run humanitarian relief all day long. They don't need a central government to do that. But if you want to rebuild Gaza, you need ministries. You need government ministries. You need the crossing points open. Now, Hamas has not only survived the Israeli operation, they're now making payments of several thousands of dollars and more to families who have lost loved ones, families who have had their houses destroyed. They are delivering assistance now, immediately, thereby increasing their own political saliency and resilience, while the international community and its slow, laborious mechanisms continue to work their way through. What will the Obama administration do when the world says, rebuild Gaza, and the Obama administration says, not a dime, until Hamas either accepts the Palestinian Authority or basically gives up? And once again, we, America, will be identified indirectly with the Israelis and the devastation that has been created. And I don't have an answer to this, because our laws, by statute, passed by Congress, we are prevented from delivering any financial or economic assistance to Hamas, and by our own politics have taken any dialogue off the table. And I will tell you that my own view is that talking to Hamas right now, it's the key to an empty room. Because all you're going to do is undermine Abbas and drive the Israelis wild and create a huge headache if you're the president, domestically. Barack Obama isn't the desk officer for the Arab-Israeli peace process. This economy is going to end up approaching cliff after cliff after cliff. And the depths of the drop are probably unanticipated and unknown, even now. This is this man's priority. The last thing he needs to do is spend political capital and currency. I'm talking to a bunch of guys, Hamas, who have a charter that to this day refuses to accept Israel's right to exist. The moderate Arabs will be undermined as well. The Jordanians, the Saudis, the Egyptians, who have their own Ikhwans and Islamists to contend with. So this is George Mitchell, a man I respect and admire greatly, is going to be very busy.
Barack Obama appears to be quite popular outside of the United States, perhaps even more popular than he is in the United States, in part probably because of his father coming from Kenya. Is there a role for public diplomacy where he appeals directly, for example, to the people of Iran to get some of U.S. foreign policy objectives obtained?
There is a role for public diplomacy, but again, we have to understand how it works. The military talks about hearts and minds. Presumably that means you play to someone's emotions, you capture them intellectually and emotionally, and then their minds come along. But I think it's the other way around. It's minds and hearts. Our public diplomacy isn't about putting a pretty bow on the package if the contents remain the same. People aren't stupid. They see through this. We need to alter and adjust our policies. That's how public diplomacy can be made to be really effective. When you have good policies, when they're perceived to be tough, fair, and smart in the eyes of the world, then people will follow. If you have bad policies, there's nothing you could do. You could get every Madison Avenue executive down to Washington, and they've tried a few during the Bush administration, to try to put a better face on American policy. It won't work. And I'm not talking about appeasing the Arabs or the Muslims, or worse, this canard that somehow America is going to sacrifice Israel on the altar of its own expediency and self-interest. I mean, I look at this situation. I have this notion in my book, which I call the cosmic oy vey. The cosmic oy vey is the inability of many, not all, but many in the pro-Israeli community in the United States to distinguish between what's really important and what isn't important. I've studied the U.S.-Israel relationship. I've worked on it for 25 years. There is no danger whatsoever, nor should any American official ever have to stand before a Jewish audience and be either embarrassed or made to feel defensive by the nature and character of America's support for the State of Israel, and why many within this community don't understand that is something that I don't understand, because I'm a member of this community. And as I pointed out in the Newsweek article, Jews worry for a living. I know that. Their tragic history impels them to worry for a living. And there's a lot to worry about. Worry about Israel. Worry about Iran. Worry about Hamas. But don't worry about the nature of the U.S. relationship with the State of Israel. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And as long as we're on the subject, one additional point needs to be made. In selling this book from one end of America to the other, invariably, and all kinds of audiences, Jewish audiences, Muslim audiences, universities, all kinds, invariably, in a Jewish audience, someone will stand up and say the following: we will never give back the Golan Heights, or we will never agree to divide Jerusalem. Now, when I was at the State Department, I had to listen to this. I don't listen anymore. I'm very polite, but I try to walk the questioner through exactly what he or she is trying to say. What do you mean we? Where's the we? I see the Israelis struggling with their own political and existential identity. When an Israeli says to me, we'll never give back the Golan Heights, I can understand that, because I know that that Israeli will have to accept the consequences of that decision. When someone living in Los Angeles or Hyde Park or Chevy Chase says that to me, it lacks a moral force, because they don't and will never have to accept the consequences of their own policy statements. They live in the greatest country on earth. There's no risk here. There's no cross-border shelling. There's no terrorism. There's no high-trajectory rocket fire. Last time I looked. It's not a morally defensible position to take. It's a free country. There's a constitution. They can assert whatever they want. But there's no we. There's the American Jewish community who lives in the comfort and security of the United States, and there's the Israelis living on the knife's edge. No we when it comes to making pronouncements about what we will and will not do.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland Forum, we've been listening to author and Middle East expert Aaron David Miller. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.